Yes. Good morning, everybody. Happy December 1st, 2014. Can you believe it? It's December already. We'll be celebrating New Year's coming up in a few days, maybe about 30 more. Good morning, everybody. It's the dog with you in the kennel with another edition of Weber this week as we begin the merry month of December. Longtime friend Dave Shaw, tough guy to schedule because he's so busy, but he's been able to carve out 30 minutes to join us this morning. A reporter who has had a long history of reporting the news around the area, and we're going to get into his background and talk a little bit about, maybe we'll talk about his Pirates and his, we won't talk about the Steelers because they had a tough loss yesterday. But Dave, thanks a lot for carving out 30 minutes to join us here on the show. You and me go back a long time, and I appreciate you coming down.
Thanks for the invitation.
That's always good. Now, Dave, and by the way, folks, if you read the Finger Lakes Times, and if you haven't seen a story written by Dave, you obviously haven't read the paper because he's in there a lot. It's David L. Shaw, correct?
That's right.
But Dave, let's flash back. We always like to find out on our guest. Tell us where you were, where you went to school, where you were born, and where you went to college, and how you got into the reporting business and the paper business.
Okay. I was born and raised in Waterloo, and proud of it. Went to St. Mary's School, went to DeSales High School. There was a bunch of us who from St. Mary's, about half our class went to DeSales, the other half went to Waterloo. And after DeSales, I went to Morrisville College, got an associate degree in journalism, transferred to West Virginia University, got my bachelor's degree there. And I would say my love for journalism started when I was actually a newspaper carrier. I was always late with the deliveries because I spent so much time reading the paper before I delivered it. I was just fascinated by the fact that you could get so much information for so little money,
right.
And it was permanent. It was there the day after. So, and I liked writing. English was one of my favorite subjects in school, so they sort of mixed together. And right after West Virginia, I got a job with the Wayne County Star as their sports editor. In Lyons, which is it was actually a morning daily newspaper. That I got paid $98 a week to do that in 1972, and I covered all 9 Wayne County schools and sports. And the paper only lasted about a year. It folded. It was a financial struggle, and after that happened, I got a job with the Syracuse newspapers in their Fulton bureau, Oswego County. That was 1973. I was up there until 1980. My last year up there, we had 273 inches of snow, so I figured it's about time to bail out of there, I think. There was an opening in Seneca Falls Bureau when Warren Jones left, so I applied for that, and they gave me the job in Seneca Falls. So I came back here in February of 80. And the first thing I walked into was the Indian Land Claim. They filed it that same month that I came in there. It was February of 80. So I had no idea what it was because I was up in Oswego County. I hadn't paid much attention to it. But so I got a quick education in that, and I've been really following that ever since. And I'm just amazed that it's still an issue. It's still a story 30 years later. It's phenomenal.
And it's not going to go away.
No, it's not. I don't know if it's going to go another 30 years, but I'll be retired by the time it ends, I think.
Well, it's fascinating to me since you and me have been friends a long time. I don't see you very often. I used to see you on occasion. But, the beauty of me being a subscriber is I enjoy your stories. You certainly, speaking to the Indian situation, I guess with all the back and forth like a ping pong match, it appears there's no end in sight. I guess from a layman's point of view, I don't know why the Bureau of Indian Affairs hasn't yet made a choice of who they think should be the leader, which, as you know, Dave, as you've written on this many times, I don't know why this takes so long to decide, is it Clint Halftown or is it the Unity Council? I guess I'm confused about that part.
Yeah, it is kind of frustrating for a lot of people that they have made decisions in the past, but the other side will appeal it, and there's an appeal process when they make a decision like this, and that's what takes forever. It's not so much the decision, but it's the appeal. And that's still pending. I mean, it's still out there. I don't know.
And I guess, I guess one of the, Dave Shaw's our special guest this morning. In my mind, an ace reporter for the Finger Lakes Times does an outstanding job. I guess the topic that has really created the stirring the pot at the Board of Supervisor level was when the county and the board have decided to appeal it to the highest court in the land. And of course, you show up for that famous November 11th meeting, which was only a few weeks ago, and find out that, oops, Harris Beach did not file the necessary paperwork in time. And, for being a minder's dropout like I am and not having education that you have just told us about yourself, even for the most dumbest person, you would wonder, how could this happen? How could anything as important as whatever that writ is called not get it in on time to the Supreme Court of the United States of America? I am still baffled at how that could possibly happen. And Harris Beach is, as you know, they're not getting $20 an hour for their legal services. I guess, can you understand the gravity of what took place and how did it happen? And in your mind, as you've been reporting for decades, how does that happen? I guess I'm confused.
I wish I knew, Harold. I'd write about it if I knew.
Yeah.
Harris Beach's excuse to me in sort of a private conversation with one of the lawyers is that they farmed this out to a firm who specializes in dealing with the Supreme Court, and they said, you go ahead and file this for us. And then just trusted them to do it, and apparently this is their view, that they didn't file it on time for whatever reason. Everybody knows you have 30 days from the decision to do this, and that's still the big mystery, is why they didn't do it. But the repercussions are just enormous. I mean,
so Dave, you mentioned that this thing has gone on for so long, and I wonder if you think that one of the reasons might be is that outside of the local residents of Seneca and Cayuga County who are directly affected by this, that there's not much political clout in enforcing any of the rules on the Cayuga Indian Nation, just because I guess from the 100-mile view ahead, it's the common public opinion would be, well, they're coming down on the Indians. We took their land back in 1600. Is there any truth to that? Is that why that we can't get our state and national government to kind of enforce the laws of the land for us locally?
I think that's part of it. There is a tradition going back years that a lot of tribes were mistreated over the years,
right?
And it's kind of like a blanket statement now. It doesn't matter what the tribe is or what the circumstances were, they'll lump them into that category of
right.
They probably were, treated badly and needed to be compensated in some fashion. And this is a pretty small claim when you look at things. In the whole nation, it's 64,000 acres. It's in a small, upstate New York, small area that doesn't attract a lot of attention. It doesn't involve any big cities. And so that's part of the reason it's sort of flown under the radar in many ways. But there was at least 3 settlements of this thing proposed back in the 80s that, for considerably less acreage and considerably less money. But the perspective is, well, they didn't agree for those settlements, so therefore they went to court, and they ended up, the tribe lost their case in court. They filed it too late. So the whole issue of them getting the 64,000 acres is pretty much over. The Supreme Court would not hear their appeal of it, so it's a done deal, which is what prompted them to go out and start buying land on their own in 2003. They said, well, we can't have a reservation this way. Let's go out and buy land. And the issue then becomes, does that land become a reservation? Because it's not in federal trust. And they claim it is, which is why they don't charge the sales tax.
Right.
That's been the big dispute for years as to whether that is sovereign land or not. And the whole tax issue comes up, and that's what brought this to court the most recent time, is the foreclosure issue.
Right.
But a lot of people think that Seneca County would have won that case if it got to the Supreme Court, because it was similar to the Oneida case. And the Oneida Indians didn't want it to get to the Supreme Court, so they agreed to waive their sovereignty.
Exactly.
And they think the Cayugas would have done the same thing. They would have been under pressure from other tribes to do that as well, because they're fearful the Supreme Court would rule against them. But as they didn't file the writ, so it may not get there. I guess it's technically possible the Supreme Court could still hear that case, but odds are pretty slim.
David Dresser wrote a letter?
Yes, asking him to please reconsider this, even though it was filed late. It's a very important case, etc. I haven't heard of any response. I don't think he has either, and I'm not sure there will be one. But
I mean, is that like John Roberts opening up the mail like you and me do at home and getting a letter from Seneca County asking for a do-over?
Yeah, well, I'm sure he doesn't open the mail himself, but somebody does it for him, puts it on his desk and says, look at this. So, but it's
just amazing. I mean, I God willing, I'll be 70 in about 5 months. 5 months, God willing. But, you know, Dave, I just am startled. And I've always been a court watcher. You know, I sometimes, believe it or not, Jimmy cracks up. Now that I'm retired, and all I do now is work with Jim, and now we're covering some basketball, so that keep me busy. But I sometimes go up to watch Dennis Bender's court on Mondays at 2 o'clock. You just sit there and just watch cases unveil, and I kind of enjoy watching attorneys get up and speak. And it's always been something that I've always been attracted to. And certainly not smart enough to be an attorney, obviously. Even though I might add that not all of them look too smart. But anyways, I find it amazing. The only reason, Dave, that your hometown, I don't spend a lot of time in Waterloo anymore, but I do, is the fact that those chairs were built in the courtroom in 1807, and they're the most uncomfortable chairs in the history of chairs. Yeah. And you don't want to sit there. And believe me, at my age, I have to get up about 28 times during the 3 hours that he gives out decisions. And I don't know who come up with the idea, and I think if you're not looking for a crowd at the Waterloo Courthouse, those chairs are perfect. You know which ones I'm talking about.
Yes, I am.
Oh, they're so...
I've sat in them for many times.
Most uncomfortable chairs I've ever seen. You know, you think back, and I am, you know, awestruck at the Indian situation as you are, and I'm glad you report on it. And I know you'll never run out of things to do, especially with the Indian situation. And now I notice the latest is I call him the Senator Bob Hyson, the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, is in a spitting match with a gentleman down there in that neck of the woods. I believe his name is Pacente. And could you update our viewers a little bit about what's going on? I know you wrote recently, Bob I think he wanted a casino corridor established on the thruway. And now I understand he's upset with this Pacente regarding the potentiality of Turning Stone building a 60-store strip mall. And that, of course, would affect Waterloo Premium Outlets.
Right.
Could you give us a little update of what's behind the scenes of that? Am I missing something here? Pacente kind of thinks that Bob is he's not responding in kind, it looks like. He doesn't really care about us, does he?
Yeah, I think Mr. Pacente is not happy that the proposed Lago Casino is so close to Cayuga County, which is the far western end of the Oneida's so-called territorial area where they could have a casino. And he thinks that's going to take away revenue from Turning Stone if it happens entire. And Turning Stone is now sharing revenue with Oneida County. They weren't doing that before, but now they are under this new agreement, which is part of the whole, we won't foreclose on your properties if you share the money with us.
Right.
So he was critical of Hyson for pushing the casino entire so close to Cayuga County.
Gotcha.
So Hyson, of course, you know how easy he gets his hackles up. And,
baby.
And he took great offense to that. And the fact that this Mr. Pacente is head of the NYSAC, the New York State Association of Counties, he's the chairman of the board. Bob just, used that as a wedge to further criticize him, saying he should be neutral. He should be advocating for the counties, not for his own county in particular, and for the Oneida Indian Nation in particular. So, and then when he heard about this 60-store outlet center that Oneidas were talking about building, he said, that was just another straw that set him off.
You're not going to have 5 casinos in New York State without having casinos near each other. I mean, that's one of the things that they're kind of having some second thoughts on now, is that, geez, are we going to oversaturate the market with all the casinos? But the difference between Turning Stone Casino and Lago Casino is that, Lago Casino is privately owned, kind of operating under normal business practices, where the Oneida Turning Stone is operated by the Oneida Indians and has had special circumstances.
Oh, yeah.
I remember back when they used to sell cigarettes, untaxed there, and that's kind of how they launched that whole enterprise. You go up there now, the cigarettes are just as expensive as anywhere because they've established themselves. And so that's just kind of similar to what's happening in Seneca Falls. Is they're just collecting all this money, they're printing money and using it to build something. And once it gets to a certain point, they may not need to do that. But if, of course, we get the Lago Casino in place, then that long-term plan, I guess, of the Cayugas wouldn't be able to come to fruition.
Dave, what's your gut feeling about the Lago? Decision supposed to be made by the 17th, I understand, the latest date?
That's the talk.
Do you have a good feeling about it, or is it something that may surprise us?
Well, of the applications for this region, just as an impartial observer, I have no feelings either way.
Right.
I've got my own thoughts about casinos, etc. But I think it's the strongest of the three. So if they're going to pick one, I would think it would be this one.
So there's Cayuga Downs, and Johnson.
Binghamton.
Right.
It's a town outside of Binghamton, but it's real close to the city.
The one thing I heard, and you heard comments as the decision is about to be made, the percentage of the committee to determine who gets the license for the Finger Lakes region, it was going to be predicated on depressed area, the condition of the area. And I am told that the Tioga area or the Binghamton area are more depressed than we are. Fair statement or not fair? I guess I don't know that. I heard that comment the other night.
I've heard that too, but I really don't have any firsthand knowledge of that.
I was just wondering.
I went to the hearing in Ithaca where they made their cases, and they did say that the end of IBM in Binghamton really took a big hit out of them. But again, this area isn't exactly thriving either. So.
No. So it'll be interesting, Jimmy, as we count down, being December 1st. Dave Shaw's my special guest this morning, longtime friend, ace reporter for the Finger Lakes Times, and trust me, folks, he does a lot of stories every night, and I bet his hand gets a little tired just making notes at these meetings, all kidding aside. Hey, we're going to take a commercial break, and we're going to move into the bailiwick of talking about a few sports items. We'll badmouth Notre Dame. Of course, we take a shot at them. Their program is going nowhere fast. Hey, some firings in college football, and will Tom Coughlin survive? Will he ever resign, or will he ask Mr. Mieras to ease him out? The Giants lose a heartbreaker. Yeah, right, after these commercial breaks. Cayuga Lake National Bank. Bill Ryan and his team for all of your banking needs. Offices in Union Springs and Aurora. A fine sponsor of this show for over 30 years. DA Liquors, Seneca Falls. Amy Padula and her great team will find that right spirit for you every time. Tell Amy the dog sent you. Steve Wadhams, Wadhams Enterprises, your employer of choice. Proud supporter of this show and local athletics. Bob and Leslie Ullman, owners of the Ullman Theater, and Lions, as well as the Newark Pilots, a minor league baseball team with a major league ballpark. SenecaFallsCountryClub.com, awesome 18-hole layout, offering a 12-month payment plan. Wilson Press, WPress.com, Seneca Falls. Rich Ricky, my good friend, and his team can handle all of your printing and mailing needs. Welcome back, everybody. It's a dog with you on a beautiful Monday morning, December 1st. Hey, it's not going to be bad. Talking Sunday, 43 degrees next Sunday. I kind of like this weather pattern. Let's keep it. I remember last year's miserable winter, and let's hope we don't get a repeat. A guy that needs to travel around the area doesn't need any snow conditions as well. But Dave, certainly we want to touch on a few sports topics. You, of course, being a big Pirate fan and a big Steeler fan, you had to be happy the way the Pirates are starting to play some good, solid baseball. And, of course, I know you're disappointed with the Steelers situation, but you're a fan and you're going to hang in there with them.
That's true. Yep, I've liked both of those teams since I was 11 years old, and I'm 65, so that's a long time to be a fan of a team, ups and downs.
Steelers are a funny bunch, aren't they?
They are. They're very unpredictable, and they just drive me nuts. There's times I can't even watch them. I just get so upset. They'll do one good thing, and next thing you know, they're letting somebody run a kickoff back all the way. You know,
it is amazing. Well, folks, let me tell you something. Myself and Jimmy and our whole team are thankful for meeting a guy named Rhett Mieras, the new director of fitness and health at the New York Chiropractic College. We had a chance to go down there to open up our 2014-15 high school basketball schedule, some 21 games without including sectionals. And I had the opportunity to do the play-by-play working with Kevin Korzaneski along with Mike Alessio, who's a new member of our team this year, Jeremy and Jason Hunt, and of course Jimmy was there to set all the equipment up and do the floor managing and the technical side of it. But they couldn't have done a more spectacular job. And Jimmy, you'll vouch for this. Names on the lockers for the kids, their own towel, their own bottle of Gatorade. We had credentials. I should have brought mine today. Amazing. Just, Jimmy, it was spectacular. The games weren't so great. I mean, let's be honest. Lions run Southern Cayuga off the court. Congratulations to Zach Young. Easy win by 40-some points. And game 2, Nick Ciotti runs South Seneca off the court. They win by some 40-some points. And Dan Lent brings in 7 kids. Feel sorry for Dan. Hang in there, Daniel. Things will turn around. But, Jimmy, it was a spectacular opening for Finger Lakes 1. I know you had to be happy. And we can't say enough good things about Rhett and his staff.
It was a really well-organized event, for a November high school basketball tournament. And
awesome.
And it's something that I think will grow. I talked to all the coaches while we were there, and they said that they'd love to come back because it was something special for those kids to walk into a big locker room, see their names.
Pretty neat.
Lions manager Gino, his name was on the locker room too, which was a thrill for him. And so Rhett Mieras really kind of went all out, even to the way the whole court area was staged with the blue banners and the lighting. And it was
well done.
It was a top-notch event. And being on the Saturday after Thanksgiving, you have a lot of people in town get to see kids play that maybe they normally wouldn't. So I hope it grows in the future. I hope they integrate some girls' games maybe on Friday night, add a couple more boys' games on Saturday, and we'll be there, to do them all.
Fantastic. And Rhett will be on the show here. He'll be on my show 2 weeks from today. He'll join us. Next week, Emil Bowlby from the Seneca Falls Town Board will be in town to join us as well on this show next week. And then, of course, Rhett Mieras. And then 3 weeks from today, we got a great show. I'm looking forward to this one. Yes, the Mieras boys, father and son. Mike Mieras, the attorney, of course, down the street, and his son James Mieras, that Dave's certainly familiar with. They did a story in the Times. Not David, but they did a story about him applying for an intern job with the Buffalo Bills. He made the final 12. He got toasted and got brought into Buffalo with his family. They wined him and they dined him. I guess that's Gatorade or some pizza. But it was a spectacular story. Both of them are going to be here on the couch on the 22nd, and that'll be a lot of fun. So the Mieras, Mike and son James, will be my guest on the 22nd as we lead up to Santa Claus. And by the way, we talked about Tommy Coughlin, Dave. Certainly Tommy needs no introduction. Not too many people. I guess you can count them up to 13 or 15. I think we were figuring that out one night at a bar having a drink, that have won 2 Super Bowls or more. Coughlin has 2. Myra's a very patient man at the helm there. The family doesn't like to change things. But I got a bad feeling about this. They've lost 7 straight. They lose a 21-0 lead against Jacksonville. I am shocked. I will be double shocked if Tom stays and is brought back next year. I just think that. I just feel it.
The Giants, in many ways, are almost like the Steelers. The Steelers don't like to make changes
exactly.
either. They had Chuck Noll for Bill Cowher. And I think Tomlin, even though he's had some difficulties, he's going to stay for a while, I think. But
be interesting.
I don't know about Tom. He's a good coach,
obviously.
He's been successful every level he's coached at. But New York City, they're
families,
tough.
Oh, they're
tough.
brutal. They're brutal.
They do not see teams with 3-9 records and losing to teams like Jacksonville.
Well, I'm looking forward to leaving this show in a few minutes and pick up my daily news and post. And, of course, whose picture will be on the back cover, Tom's. Mm-hmm. And, by the way, Notre Dame, all you Notre Dame fans, I get laughing at all you Irish fans. Hey, don't worry about our. We got a great team this year. Really? Really? You give up 39 to Navy a few weeks ago, and you go out to Southern Cal and get trounced, 49-14. I love to pick on Charlie Schaefer and Johnny Capacci, some of my good friends who are Notre Dame supporters. Guys, your team is, on a scale of 1 to 10, about a 3.5. They're not that good. They really aren't.
In reality, they're 3.5, but they'll always be treated as a 1.5, until they lose like 4 games in a row, and then people will admit it. Notre Dame
They're not that good.
Has the benefit of the doubt the same way that maybe Duke basketball or even Syracuse basketball might, they're because of their history, they're going to always get the benefit of the doubt.
The aura of the Irish.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you something. If you're an Irish fan, you got to be shaking your head. I was talking about my friends up the Ronnie Cedar Inn that I like to stop and have a drink once in a while when I'm in that area. I always kid them about when they lose, to dim the lights at 2 o'clock on a Monday. Today at 2, we're going to shut the lights off.
Well, think about it. Early in the season, they were talking national championship contenders.
Oh, my
and the
God.
people are being serious. And this team just got killed by USC, who got killed by Boston College.
Yeah, I know. And by the way, I was talking to Dave, Ray Rice situation. I don't condone what he did. Nobody watching this show, nobody certainly should ever condone raising a hand, and let alone raising a hand and actually slugging a woman. Are you serious? That aside, and I don't condone it, I think it's deplorable. I think Ray Rice should have been punished. And I believe he was, and I believe he has some sort of sorriness in his body that what took place. If you missed it, if you just got back from Moscow, the arbitrator ruled against the NFL, reinstating Rice to sign with any team that will have him. The question is, will anybody want him? And Dave, he's an outstanding running back, but as you mentioned before we went on the air this morning, the signs are going to be out in front of the stadium if somebody signs him. Mm-hmm. So it's a lose-lose, I guess.
Yes, any team that does sign him is going to be taking a risk of a PR hit, serious PR hit.
Oh, yeah.
But the NFL's performance and driven, and somebody will take a chance on him. I mean, it's happened in the past.
I guess my view, and I know I've brought this up on my show, that's why I can do it because it's my show. I guess I got a real concern about some people that want to stab this guy in the heart. I don't agree with what he did. I find it totally deplorable. I'm not supporting, abuse. Okay, but what bothers me about some people who say that the guy should be sent to hell right now is that we send away mass murderers to Attica who spend 30 years for killing 6 people and they get out. I know that's a tough analogy, but I think we as a country forgive. And I think we have a long history of forgiving folks. I say, yes, he's paid a penalty. Do I condone what he did? Absolutely not. And Dave's right. It would be a terrible PR hit. But I also think he deserves a chance to play football. And maybe not this year. And I think somebody in the NFL will take a chance on him, and we'll have to wait and see how it all unfolds. By the way, speaking of the NFL, I was shell-shocked, and maybe Jimmy picked up on it. But yesterday, that great game, the Packers against the Patriots, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, what a matchup. And it turned out to be a phenomenal game. And I have to wonder, because Jimmy is our director on our broadcast, and he's the one that sets the cameras to go where and how and what time. Brady got upset. I guess it was late third quarter. We had a 3rd and 6, and he only got 4 yards. And they panned his face, and he screamed the F word. Now, he didn't scream it at anybody, but he screamed it, and you could see it. Mm-hmm. You could read his lips. I got one good eye, folks, and it was evident to me that he was upset by not getting the first down. But I want to tell you something. In that 4th quarter, with time running out and Rodgers needing 5 or 6 yards to cement the game, which he got, they panned him again, Brady on the sidelines. F word, F word, F word. I could not believe, Jim, that CBS's director of that telecast would pan that camera to pick that up, because to me, there was no secret of what he was screaming, and he wasn't looking at somebody screaming it. He was upset. And Jim, for a director to pan that, what does that say to kids that are watching that game?
I don't think they care anymore. I think that they want. I think they were happy to see that almost to a point. And even if you go to an NFL game like the Bills games and see the way that the fans act there and what is acceptable, I guess, to the management and security. Yeah. I just think in the whole scheme of things that the vulgarity and obscenity isn't as big of a deal as it used to.
Okay.
Now, if they would bleep the audio, but they'll let you read his lips, I think.
Yeah, it was interesting. I just thought, anybody watching the game age 2.5 or higher would have realized that he's screaming the F word. And he's not screaming at anyone. He's mad at himself for not getting it done. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, geez, God, kids that are idolizing this guy, thinking, geez, if I'm playing high school football and I screwed up, I may go to the sideline and do the same thing. That's where I was coming from. So it'll be interesting, Dave, to see how that unfolds. I was so surprised that nobody picked up on it. To me, I was quite shocked at it.
Yeah, I noticed it, but I just sort of quickly forgot about it.
Yeah, amazing.
Hey, Doug, before we go, can I ask Dave a question?
Sure.
The Finger Lakes Times has a great product, and everybody knows nationwide the struggles that newspapers are having. And the Finger Lakes Times has seemed to weather that storm fairly well. And so my question is, what does the future look like for the Times, being in the fact that if the Times was to, not be around anymore, we really would have no type of journalism covering these events, like you mentioned, the land claims or the meetings and the thousands of other things the Times covers. What's kind of the state of the Times now, and what's the future look like? I know you're getting ready to retire and move on, but how are things going to be, heading forward?
Well, I'm not sure. Hopefully that, our circulation is fairly stable. It's not declining like a lot of newspapers are. That's a good thing, but we need it to be higher, and like it was in the older days. But people, for some reason, are just getting away from newspapers. It's kind of sad, in my estimation. Yeah. But we're down to 3 reporters. They had 10, 11 reporters in the past, as much as 10 years ago. And it's just difficult to cover 4 counties with 3 people, 3 full-time reporters. And
impossible.
So we're always looking to cut costs. And it is a good product. It's always been a good product, and hopefully it'll survive. But it would be a loss if they went under. I'm going to be gone at the end of next year, 2015. I'm going to retire December.
You're just saying that.
So about a year from now.
About a year from now.
You're just saying that, right? You can talk you into staying around?
Maybe part-time, not this full-time thing anymore.
Yeah, I know. It's got to be tough on you. Well, listen, I appreciate you carving out 30 minutes of your busy schedule to join us. It's always good seeing you. Happy holidays, and thanks again for coming on.
Thanks you for having
coming
me.
in, Dave.
All right.
This guy knows more about a lot of things in this area that I guess he has some notes that he probably isn't publishing, but I'm sure there hasn't anything that he hasn't seen that's happened in local politics and the Indians. This guy is an expert on that. Hey, by the way, before we wrap up, just a reminder, thanks to Rhett Mieras for the outstanding job of hosting us the other night, but our high school basketball schedule continues with a triple header coming up next Saturday. Jimmy Senecropi will be covering 3 games at 3 o'clock, at 5 o'clock, and at 7 o'clock. Jim Senecropi, Geneva Wilson, Newark Livonia, and Victor versus Pelmac. That'll be on Finger Lakes 1 TV starting at around 2:45-ish. That's next Saturday, December the 6th, as Jimmy will be covering a triple header of high school basketball. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again to our good friend Dave Shaw for joining us this morning. Next week, Emil Bovee, speaking of politics, he's on the Seneca Falls Town Board. He'll be updating the issues regarding Seneca Falls. Until next week, folks, you have a great week. That's a look at Weber This Week, my way.
by becoming a patron of FingerLakes1.com. Visit patreon.com/FL1.
FingerLakes1.com